Every year there is a new Call of Duty game, and every year fans come together to complain about the current COD, rave about the previous COD, and scoff at the future COD to come. Things were different when Call of Duty World War II was on the horizon. The Call of Duty Zombies community was in an uproar when the trailer for the Final Reich made its first appearance on the Activision YouTube page. Fans were officially excited that we were getting a dark and grim horror zombies experience. Finally, something Treyarch has not done, an original zombies experience. Even after the game was dispersed early to all the big YouTubers, and ironically in Germany, the community was still praising the game due to its dark, gritty, and fun gameplay. However, it did not take long for the opinions of the zombies community to shift into the realm of disappointment. Section 1. Sledgehammer Games and the development team. I think that it is safe to say that when it comes to a developer's first zombie map, it's usually decent. Shadows of Evil was a masterpiece. It took fans a while to appreciate. It still stands as one of the best zombies maps to date. Spaceland still holds up. The Final Reich is actually a really great map, but the problem with these launch maps is that the developers have had such a long time to work on them that they can flush out every single detail so that the experience on launch is flawless for fans. While these maps all set the tone for what to expect in our zombie season, we really should not let them speak so loudly. Sledgehammer was set up to fail right off of the bat, and it's partly Activision's fault as well as the fans. Activision gave the Sledgehammer Games team a project that was too big and ambitious for them to complete. They also could not live up to the standard that fans have created due to Treyarch's over-ambitious projects. The Sledgehammer team, for zombies particularly, was led by Cameron Dayton, who by all means is a super nice guy, just judging from what I've seen on social media. He and the team were super passionate about the mode, but zombies fans can be relentless. Cameron's team had only a few members, and as the season progressed, it was clear that their budget was getting cut due to future projects since the project itself was sinking. The design choice of the mode was very interesting, and there was a tonal shift that was expressed across the story and gameplay, but we're going to get into that a little later. Besides all of the interesting insider bullshit that goes on behind the scenes in development, it seems that Sledgehammer Games had a ton of things go wrong for them throughout the COD season. Luck was just not on their side at all. And now let's think about this from the beginning, shall we? The first instance of bad luck was Zombies Fatigue. The game had to work off of the excitement of Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, and then Zombies Chronicles. I know most people think that Infinite Warfare Zombies was not a good mode, but there is an actual big fan base for that game. The Zombies community was used to getting 2-year breaks in between Zombies modes, and this was 3 straight years of content, and this can be quite overwhelming. The second instance of bad luck is Fortnite and the YouTube scene. Fortnite has demolished the gaming industry in so many ways that I'm not going to get into this video, but I'm pretty sure if you've been following, you know what I'm talking about. Fortnite sucked every YouTuber away from World War II zombies.
No!
The pull to Fortnite was so strong that only YouTubers were coming for the Easter egg hunts, and after it was solved, they'd go back to what they were doing. There was also a ton of demonetization going on in the YouTube community for videos pertaining to World War II because of the word Nazi, and it's not allowed in titles or thumbnails or other facets of YouTube that can be considered ad-friendly. The third thing that hurt this game was how the Easter egg was solved on the Final Reich before the game had launched worldwide. I know that there was a notebook in the game which gave the player hints of how to complete the Easter egg, but it still stunted the hype that could have driven that map to the realm of longevity. Now, in my opinion, this did not hurt it for me. I was still intrigued, but I know many other fans were upset. And I can understand that if you're trying to go for the first in the world experience. The fourth thing that killed the momentum of this game was DLC 1 being leaked early. It was clear that the maps were done for multiplayer and the cutscenes were ready for zombies, but they were holding back content just so they could charge fans more. This on top of all the previous things mentioned and the shaky launch of the game itself with the servers down and headquarters not working, there was just so much going against this game that fans grew tired of it before the season really even began. Another piece of interesting information is how Michael Condrey and Glenn Schofield were quote-unquote moved to the corporate side of Activision. After this took place, the game became increasingly more fun and better for fans. Loot boxes were changed, more events took place, more weapons became earnable. The only problem with all of this great change is that none of it was dispersed evenly onto the zombies community. But can you blame Sledgehammer? No one was playing zombies, so why would they allocate resources to it? Why would Activision pump money into a mode that everyone hated? They wouldn't. It's a vicious cycle of zombies getting no love and multiplayer being the main focus yet again. Section 2. The story. The story in this game started off strong. I was really invested in these characters, and the idea that we had a secret faction of soldiers from all over the world to investigate Hitler's secret plans sounded amazing. The plan even took a dark turn when you found out the main character, Marie, her brother, was working for an evil Nazi scientist, and your goal was to recover him from your hometown, Middelburg, Germany. The main quest made sense, the boss fight, intriguing, and the ending cutscene was heart-wrenching. You save Klaus, the brother, as he is cursed in some way, but you are not sure why. The team believes it has something to do with the tomb of Barbarossa that they find in the salt mines of Middelburg. Dr. Straub, the villain, escapes and you are off to the next location. It is a little cliche, I will admit that, but it's not off to a bad start, especially when you combine the atmosphere and the gameplay mechanics. So, where did things go wrong? I would argue they went wrong on the next map, the Darkest Shore. This map had a very confusing story that made fans dig, but there was no clue as where to start digging. Even when the lore was brought to light by other YouTubers such as RadAustin27 who make a living off zombies, none of the story really pertained to what we had learned in the previous map. The player learns that Dr. Straub, again the main villain, had created a zombie called the Moischler. This zombie is super smart, it could communicate, and it started worshipping the god Nerthus. What the hell does this have to do with Marie saving her brother from the dark evil? It doesn't. It also led players to believe that each map had to do with a significant figure. First it was Barbarossa, then it was Nerthus, and then as we went on, it seemed to go back to Barbarossa, but nothing was really adding up. After the team escapes the island, they land in Berlin to the map, the Shadowed Throne. This is arguably a good map, and the story was but more importantly, the gameplay was really fun. This map has nothing to do with Klaus, but more so has to do with Barbarossa and the underlying plot of the game. This would have made a lot more sense if we did not go to the island for the first DLC. After you find the Blade of Barbarossa, you head up to the Zeppelin to fight the villain, Dr. Straub, but he ends up getting eaten by his own zombie creation. This was a great twist if you ask me. After Dr. Straub gets killed, you fight his final boss zombie creation, and then you get saved by your general or whoever he is, General Rideau. Head on over to DLC 3, The Tortured Path. Kind of held off mentioning this until this point in the video because I want to emphasize how stupid I think this is from a narrative perspective. Remember how when we were discussing the Final Reich story just a moment ago, I said that we discover the power from Barbarossa's tomb? Well, in real life, legend has it that Barbarossa had some magic sword, so Cameron Dayton and his team used that real life lore and tie it into their zombies mode. Sounds pretty cool, right? Wrong. Each map thus far in the season has been a fetch quest to put together this sword. In the Final Reich, we find the hilt. In the Darkest Shore, we find the pommel, and in the Shadowed Throne, we find the blade. All of those pieces together equal a sword. But do you know what happens? Can you take a guess? In DLC 3, The Tortured Path, after collecting all those pieces in a fetch quest fashion, Sledgehammer thought it would be a good idea to make you collect them again. Kid you not. The Tortured Path felt like a filler map and/or maps. This DLC was broken up into 3 survival maps that represented more of an arcade-style shooter with mini objectives throughout the 10 rounds where the game ended. In the 3rd map, after you collect the pieces again, you put the sword together and you can only use it for a few rounds as the game ends at round 10. This is a very shitty reward. We were so far gone from Klaus and Marie at this point that I don't know where the hell the story is going. I don't even like this map and I don't even really want to waste much time talking about it. Soon after the Tortured Trash, we end up in the lost city of Thule, which was the same location as the 3rd map in the Tortured Path, only this time Sledgehammer titles this The Frozen Dawn. In this map, you have to build the 4 long-lost weapons of the Raven Lords, who I guess protected Barbarossa from corruption, and then you have to fight the evil boss, the God King. I'm so fucking lost at this point that I can't even stress to you how stupid this is. Our 4 characters defeat the God King, and what a great name, by the way. They become Raven Lords, and they are given powers from Marie's brother Klaus, who is now a rook, and I guess that in the Final Reich, after he had been corrupted by this evil, he became a medium from, I don't even know, I really don't know. If you're as lost as I am, you're not alone. This story started off with the Nazis pushing for the undead to rise and fight for them in their Final Reich, building the sword of Barbarossa. Then it turned into us fighting the God King to save humanity. Nothing happened with Barbarossa, and the ending is so ambiguous I couldn't really tell you what happened if you paid me. Section 3. Gameplay and map design. I'm not going to go through each map again like we did with the story because I believe gameplay elements apply across all the maps for the most part. The first item on this list that bothered me was the style choice and color palette for the entire mode. The game lacked vibrancy and bright colors and had this desaturated color palette filled with grays and browns. When looking at a map like Origins, for example, you can see the overall tone of the map is to be gray and dreary, but there is still a lot of color and vibrancy that goes into the game. I understand that Sledgehammer was going for a specific vibe, but it was not pleasing to look at for a whole year. I think it's fair to say that all the main quests in the game were either way too difficult or underwhelming. The only quest that was balanced was the Final Reichs. This leads me to my next point that the game was not balanced for solo players. The main quest had solo players burning through rounds because the steps would require no zombies on the map, or if you had too many chasing you, the player would have to kill them just to complete a step. This led the player to get to the boss fights on higher rounds, and the round difficulty would be equal to whatever round you were on last. Also, the rounds increased during the boss fights, which would increase the difficulty and the speed of the zombies. This was due to the unbalanced nature of the boss fights, which were also way too long. The bosses were always bullet sponges with little indication as how to defeat it. I never cheated on any boss fights during the entire season of World War II, but when the God King came along, it was just so long and drawn out. I used the flamethrower glitch right away because I didn't care to shoot him with the bar for 2 hours. The issue with these complex quests they implemented into the game was that you had to look up specific solo guides. When Treyarch had a quest, you could look up a guide and it would be a list of steps on how to complete it, like a checklist almost. But with the World War II guides, people needed step-by-step guides for everything. Which consumables you needed, which weapons, how many points you needed by round 4, and that's fucking stupid. It leaves so little room for creativity for the player and makes everything a chore that can't be altered due to this horrendous difficulty created by the developers. One of the worst mistakes that were made in this game was the lack of consumables. This forces the player to play the game the same way every time. There was no variety in World War II Zombies. Once you beat the quest, that was it, and fans would have to wait 3 months until the next map. Gobblegums is one of the best features of Black Ops 3 and gave the game a super long lifespan. It's 2018 and I can finally say I'm done with Black Ops 3. I was sick of World War II Zombies after The Darkest Shore. Just because I know people are probably interested, I will give a quick rating of each map before we move on to the final section. The Final Reich, pretty great map, 9 out of 10 on gameplay and quest. The Darkest Shore, terrible. Fog sucked, Moistler sucked, tedious quest, and bad gameplay, 3 out of 10. The Shadowed Throne, decent, not as good as the Final Reich, but a lot more side quests and fun main quest. Long, tedious boss fight, the Sizzlers were retarded, cool ending with Dr. Straub getting murdered, 7 out of 10. The Tortured Path, super lame. Survival maps locked behind quest completion wall. No new wonder weapons and not really a new boss fight. The sword was a semi-upgraded version from the Shadowed Throne, 1 out of 10. The Frozen Dawn. To summarize, the story sucked. The weapons were fun, the quest was ridiculous with out-of-control soul boxes, too many items to pick up, boss fight was lame, too long, and underwhelming. 5 out of 10. Section 4. Conclusion. I think from the perspective of being a multiplayer fan, you had a pretty decent season. The dev team really stepped up their game after Condrey and Schofield left. There were a ton of events and weapons to be earned. You genuinely did not have to purchase a loot box if you did not want to, which I say is fucking great. But if you were a Zombies fan, you were left in the dust. Activision did make the right call by pulling resources away from World War II Zombies because it did seem like Black Ops 4 was going to be the investment to make, and it seems like it's going to blow fans away and will have a long lifespan to boot. In a way, I'm thankful that Activision and Sledgehammer made a bummer-ass version of COD Zombies because instead of getting burnt out, I now have a bunch of shit to look forward to. If there's anything to learn about this game, it's that the replayability and variety matter. Monotony and tedious quests that do not reward the player after suffering from the ridiculous difficulty is not the way to run a game. Hopefully, other devs and even the Sledgehammer devs will learn from their mistakes that this was unacceptable. The game suffered because of a variety of things, and I do believe that World War II also hit a streak of bad luck, and they could not get themselves out of this rut. It's a difficult place to be in, especially when COD fans are so delicate. Hopefully, Treyarch can learn from Infinity Ward's and Sledgehammer's mistakes when it comes to zombies, community feedback, and following their gut, because another year like this, and there may not be another Zombies mode to ever complain about.